Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, how small? I say this is a tiny stream in the jungle. Really? How small? So small. I'm not inclined to play Valorant. We're just gonna update on the card game, and I swear it's gonna be fast. I will look at. I will demonstrate, and I will just gloss over the code that I did. I swear it's gonna be short. Here's the scoop, though. We've been making a card game, and I want to update on how it looks, and I want to give you a roadmap as to what we're about to head to. So if I show off this screen, this is Unity. It's what we've been making the card game in, and I won't go all the way back to the beginning of when a meteor crashed into the earth and took out the dinosaurs. I'm just going to say the current progress needed to include a fix, which is interesting. Last stream, we showed off that we could get some cards to go after each other, and I mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to implement next. One of them was a a step that we had been skipping. Basically, we have a draw pile with all the silly names of battle cards like Moon Mouse and Snare Squirrel and things like that, Rocket Dragon. And these 50 cards need to be dealt. And so we've been skipping this step and just putting them straight into the hand of, or dealing them straight into the hand, 5 cards each for the 2 players. But now there's an explicit step to do that. So now there's 40 cards in the draw pile, and here's 5 cards for each player. That's cool. Along with that, and I'm really just discreetly clicking that button to move it to the next step. This next step is moving from the hand into play, which is like choosing which cards in your hand you want to play and putting them on the table to battle. They're going to go into battle, and probably not all at once, but probably one at a time and such. So choosing which cards you will play is here, and this now moves it from the hand. Well, I guess I'll show player 2. Player 2 is going to select these 3 cards out of the 5 they have in their hand, and it's going to go into their play, or in other words, on the table. So as I click the button, it moves from the hand onto the play deck. These are essentially decks of their own. The ones that are on the table here are stacks of cards or arrangements of cards. So now these cards have been moved onto the table. They can be played. And from here, this is the step that we skipped, and we said we wanted to fill in. Essentially, we went from the hand straight into battle, and that's no longer the case. Now they actually are in play first, and then they meet in battle. And this is much more like the drawings that we've been doing. The concept is these cards will, like on a battlefield, march together and eventually meet in battle. So in essence, there really is probably going to be only one card from either side that's going to be touching it first. Let's take let's take Hyperdrive and Tiger God. That's fine. So these are just picking one of these cards now that are in play. As these 3 on both sides approach, as both sides approach each other, there's really only one that touches with another to begin with. And so that's kind of simulating what's going on here. And at first in battle, there's only 2 cards. So now I say do battle, and our battle data will be not populated with every card in play, but just those 2. So this ironically begins to look like our original test with just 2 cards. But it's actually much more like what we plan to do for the full game. We are actually pretty close to a full game prototype. So while I only chose 2 cards, and actually we saw a luck win, which is kind of interesting. As Tiger God was about to take out Hyperdrive for some reason, Hyperdrive had more luck, had a luck of 5. Tiger God had luck of 3. And wow, that's a really rare chance. But it did turn it around and win the match anyway. I save Hyperdrive by giving it 1 hit point, and I reduce Tiger God to 0, and it's removed from play. So there was a missing step. Instead of going straight from the hand into battle, we actually go into play first. So player 1 has moved 3 cards into play, and now one of them has been taken out of play because it died, right? Where did it go? Well, we also haven't been doing a discard pile at all, and there's Tiger God. So we've been kind of glossing over this because we really just wanted to play with combat, and we got impatient, frankly, and went straight from the hand into battle, so that we could test it. And we were recently testing multiple cards in battle. So if I did this over again, beginning round 1, so it deals the cards, right? Let's go ahead and pick some of these cards. I'm just going to pick the first 3. Let's do this quickly. So there's 3 on both sides, and so if I do play, now on the table there are these 3 cards. Let's imagine now that we have more than one card meeting with more than one card in battle. So if I now have 2 cards that I'm going to use in battle, I'm going to take the first 2 here and the first 2 here. I'm indexing them this way. These numbers are way clunky for non-programmers to get what's going on. This will be translated into something way more understandable in an interface later, but for right now, this is fine. I just need to test this. So now I'm going to take 2 of the 3 cards on both sides and throw them into battle. So now we have multiple cards, and we still have our speed determining the order of these battles, so that the cards with the higher speed go first. And so we can do more than one card in battle at the same time. Again, they are being removed from play when they are defeated, and they're being moved into the discard pile. Yay! So we skipped a step, and I added the step. It now looks way more like the game prototype that we want to get to, because I kind of want to be able to do the next round, right? After this, well, actually, there's one more thing. We're going to have multiple rounds. At each round, you're going to be dealt new cards. You can pick new cards to play, and then you can pick, those cards will meet in battle. Okay. And discard. That's kind of fun. Okay. So I guess there's 2 other things to mention. One is we also wanted to implement this orders. The marching orders of the cards was a way that we could say, you send these cards into battle, or at least they're on the playing field, and we would like to have the player dictate, if there's a choice of cards to attack, which one should it attack? And not knowing what the other cards are, the opponent cards are, you kind of need to give the player some menu of ways to discern which card to attack. So whether it is the most or the least, you can choose among the 5 stats to decide which card on the opponent's side your cards would like to attack first. This really only comes into play when there's more than one card to attack. As we showed earlier, usually would start with just 1. But we do have that case where if the victorious card now joins battle with its neighbor against another card, well, there's 3 cards in battle. The opponent now has a choice of which card to go after. This is how a player can have some level of control over that, while we still get a very kinetic, active battle between cards without having to stop the action and ask of a player like a JRPG, which battle or which card would you like to attack, because that's kind of not as fun. These rounds are already going to take a little while, and I don't think it's necessary that we stop and give the player fine-grained control over each turn. So for right now, one of the things that we are going to be able to test when this gameplay prototype is complete is how much control should we give the player versus how much should we let the battle play out and look cool, right? There is a balance that we want to strike, and I think right now this is probably our best guess. So adding an extra step that we have been skipping over, done. Actually, we tested it and it looks good. We also, by the way, fixed a problem. Last stream, I found a problem that presented itself on a luck win. When one card defeats another, there's a chance for luck to turn it around. And that exposed a problem that I did track down. It took a little while. There's something to be said about that. The way that we progress in game development to prevent complexity overcoming our plans and presenting a bug that we didn't anticipate. There's some tactics you can do to mitigate those problems. Excuse me. So we've got marching orders for the cards that are in play for that round. We've got the extra step so that cards go from the draw pile to your hand, from the hand down on the table in play, and then they meet in battle one by one, right? And then if they're defeated, they go into the discard pile. So this is all a flow of cards that needed to happen, and it's done. Yay. There is another detail, which is to say, if we do just have one card meeting in battle with another card, that's great, but there are other cards in play. Like right now, there are 3 cards on each side, and as the battle goes on, one is removed because it died. Well, there is one left in play, actually. This card is still in the battle. Technically, it's still here. Actually, technically, both cards are in battle. But one is tracked as being 0 hit points. It is dead. And so it was removed and taken to the discard pile to live there, right? By the way, the possibility of having special cards to resurrect dead cards from the discard pile is there. I'm just putting that out there. Anyway, so we have cards removed from play, and I think this is safe to do. I'm still on the fence whether we should actually just keep the number of slots the same and blank it out so that the indexes are consistent. That's a distinct possibility, but for now it looks okay. It looks interesting because we've actually moved the card right from here into the discard pile because it died. Well, the battle data is still here while the game is running, and what we need to consider is this is not actually the end of the full battle in the round. The battle actually should be continuing because 2 more cards are likely going to meet in battle. And in fact, the one that is already in battle, this one is left over, is still available. So in other words, this battle needs to stay, and other cards are going to join the battle. Joining the battle doesn't mean, as we've been showing, initializing a brand new battle from nothing. It means, critically, remember these hit points left over from the previous battle, so that this thing doesn't get reset to the full health that it had before. It's been hurt, and in fact, it's nearly dead. We want to retain that so that as other cards join the battle, this might do a little bit of help, but eventually it should be weak and taken out probably. This is kind of how we want the battle to progress. In other words, the thing that's missing at this point is saying the battle should continue. We should be able to insert brand new cards. In this case, I can go ahead and say I would like 1 extra card. One extra card. So this Sonic Starling is still there. I'll say Regen Blood is going to be in there as well. And we're going to join the battle with the War Unicorn, okay? So now this is simulating what I want to do next, and it's not exactly working. That's why I'm going to say simulating, because we've selected new cards while the battle is still technically going on. We actually want to, I think, remove a card from battle. Actually, I haven't tested this appropriately. I'm just going to do this and leave this here. This should be dead and maybe skipped over. But it will interfere, I guess. I guess it interferes with speed, but it won't matter. I don't know. This is why we test. I'm in the middle of this. I would say this is the next step. I'm going to add these cards to the battle and see what happens, because it should actually, yeah, there we go. It shows cards in battle. There's only 3 of them. The other one was straight up taken away. And it's keeping track of health again and all this stuff. But there is a problem. Notice Sonic Starling got all its hit points back. Yeah, it's because it's still kind of initializing a brand new battle, and it shouldn't. Instead, I want to say, whoa, 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 I'm re-adding, or I'm keeping Sonic Starling here with its reduced hit points. Just leave that alone and skip it and move on and add the other ones. That's kind of what I want to do. Otherwise, the battle looked pretty good. It continued to remove cards from one side, and so we could continue to add like the last card with all 3 of these, I suppose, just for laughs. We'll go ahead and do this. And so now this would be the end of this round. This is the final battle. All 3 cards against 1. I think that we know where this is going to head, but there could be a luck win. You never know. Okay, so it ended. And in the end, all the cards from player 1 got discarded because they were all defeated. The battle is now done. Player 2 did win, not player 1. So this is pretty much working, except for that thing where we cheated, because Sonic Starling got its hit points back every single time the battle was rejoined, and that's not fair. We want Sonic Starling, or any card that's been wounded, to stay wounded for the next leg of the battle, the next skirmish in the battle, until the entire round is done, until all the cards on one side are defeated. That would be the end of the round. So now we'd technically be in round 2, and we would take more cards from the draw pile and deliver them into the hand, and that follows more like what we've been talking about for this game concept. So that's a demonstration. I will briefly show you what that meant here, because when we have that death blow, I wanted to find the card that died and move it to the discard pile. Frankly, I'm actually explicitly I'm copying it to the discard pile from the play hand, the play deck that the player had. And so I do that for both sides. This is for player 1, and I do the same for player 2. But I did want to show you this, because this actually looked like a lot more code than this one line. I haven't really talked about this much, but I've been making helper scripts the whole time. And what I haven't really described what I mean by that. Well, I mean that this is cluttered as all get out. You can see it's all commented out right now, but it was doing the job of removing it from the play on the table. And so that, along with copying the card to the discard pile, makes it looks like it moved, right? Well, this is a lot of code, and it's frankly a little cluttered. And the fact that I do it more than once is bad. Like, as soon as I see myself doing it more than once, there's an indication that I should probably make a helper script to make this simpler and easier. If nothing else, just to make it one line and not several. Well, what I mean by making a helper script is I have other scripts in my project that I've been working on, including one to handle shuffling, which is not just mixing the cards up, but also moving cards from one hand or one deck or one pile to another. Other helper scripts do other things, but in this case, I ask the shuffle helper scripts to include, for example, discard this card from play in the battle into the discard pile. This is copying it, frankly. This is technically copying the card. But this is what that routine looked like. It's a lot of lines of code. Well, I tested it here first, and it worked. So then I, frankly, moved it and made it so I could use it over and over again for both sides easily. And so I tested this to make sure this worked the same way. And so now it's safe to just replace it. So suddenly a lot of lines of code turned into one line. And I did the same thing here. This is a bunch of lines of code to remove it from play for this player. There's a card. I know the name of it. I want to go find it, and I remove it from play and keep the other cards that are in play. Well, that's a lot of lines of code, and especially since I do it in more than one place, this means I probably should make a helper script. So I did. I tested it here like this and made sure that worked, and then I made a helper script to remove from play. And this effectively does the exact same stuff, but it is able to work with either player, and I just give it the card name. It goes and finds it and removes it. If it can't, I'm being careful and making sure that I know it couldn't find it so that I can debug stuff easier. But that means now I can just use this one line, and I can very cleanly take this out. I can safely do this because it's doing the same thing. And doesn't that look so much nicer? Doesn't it look so much cleaner? This is what I mean by making helper scripts. And the part of the process in software development that we're describing here is super common, that you're not sure how it's going to work yet, and you need to explore the methods to make it work well. You test that. But as soon as you do, you want to go in and make it cleaner, mainly so that when bigger, more complicated problems arise later on, this is much easier to read. That this is a central place where any problem might be. You're not hunting through lots of different places, you're hunting through one place, and looking through the rest of this code is relatively easy. I actually use this over and over again, so it's not just 2 places, it's 4 places. This is frankly for luck win. And that's what I mean by using helper scripts. This is not a coding stream, I swear, and I'm not teaching how to code yet. I'm just giving you the concept about how this is progressing and why things are... I'm spending time now for things that will save a ton of time later. That's what's going on. All right. I also want to describe... this is a helper script that I would use for joining the battle. We just talked about the battle data staying there while we add new cards to the battle and keep the old one that has hit points. So there's work to do, but I've already started. I understand that I need to have a routine to join the battle. And in fact, I may make it so that this join battle even begins the battle initially, so that every time we do battle, it's the same routine. And that would likewise make it easier to debug and simpler to find any problems that are only going to be in one place. All right. There's plenty of helper scripts like, hey, which card is this? Is this card alive? Etc., etc., etc. So there are helper scripts that I've been writing all along, getting the card stat, etc., etc., etc. So once I realize that I need something in the tests that we've been doing, I identify, especially if I do that more than once, if I do it more than once in my code, it's an indication I need to actually condense it into a helper script so I can just call that same function or that same method multiple times. And since I'm making this, all of the tooltip language you see here, like removes a card from play given the player's play deck and card name. This is language that I wrote. This isn't coming from somewhere else. It sounds like I'm going a little over the top to make it that complete, but I have already run into a case where the complexity of our systems of shuffling cards, moving it from one deck to another, and referencing them and trying to find the original card values and things like that, I've already run into the problem where it helped that I was this methodical and this careful. So being methodical and careful is sort of a touchstone. So here's another helper script that's currently in our test, and I may actually move it later, but for right now it works. It's the one that made it so I could continue the battle, because it actually ignores a card that already exists. Like a card that's actually on the play field is an object in the scene. So when I start a battle, these cards appear, and when I do a new battle, these cards actually, I don't want them to stay there. This card that died, the object is still there, but if you look, there is parts of it that have been deleted. Frankly, the image of the card is gone. The effects are still there. And this is what I check to make sure that I shouldn't actually remake the same card. There were a couple of issues with that. All right. So what does this mean? This means that I'm so close to having something where it would actually track who won each round, which means we could easily track who won the match. And given this control, given the discrete steps of going from the hand to play, I think there's only a few other things we need, including determining how the cards in play are ordered in terms of going into battle, like the formation they're in. Whichever one is leading is going to touch how they meet in battle. They actually need to be touching. And that determines also which cards have neighbors they could join in battle, etc. There are a number of questions that are good, that translate to good options or opportunities for us in terms of design decisions that should make one of them is going to be a better, funner, more interesting game experience than the other, and we will choose those. Those questions will pop up as we get closer to the end of developing a proper game prototype, but we're so close, so close. And with that, I'm going to end the stream. I know it's really short. I didn't even play Valorant. What's that about? Well, this stream is really more about game design and game development than it is about Valorant. That said, I guess I could play Valorant later, but I would make a new stream, and I'll just post this on YouTube for catching up on the card game that we're currently calling Shuffle Wars. Okay. Thank you for being a part of our journey to make this card game, and I appreciate any input and contributions, even if you're just hanging out and leaving the tab open so that it looks like there are more people viewing. That helps too. All right. Thank you, and I will talk to you later.